What's up, YouTube? We are here. We're going to be reacting to a bit of a different video today. We're going to be watching the video called The Downfall of the Most Notorious Yu-Gi-Oh! Cheater. Okay, so if you guys don't know, YouTube frogs, I play Yu-Gi-Oh! I go to my local card shop every weekend. I play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've won a couple of my local tournaments. So I'm not like bad. I've only been playing for like 6 months or so. Back into playing 6 months ago after not playing for like 15 years or something. But if you want to come watch this live, don't forget to come watch this live. Okay, we react to videos all the time live.
You know where a procedural error goes after.
I know, but I'm saying, like, I don't know where it went wrong.
Your whole field is illegal.
This is Fraser Smith. Fraser has just won a match of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the most bizarre way possible, because he barely played a single card. Rather, his opponent has just 2-0'd himself.
Oh my god.
And you might be wondering how this is possible.
But it's so basic. These moves are just like...
Honestly, in recent weeks at Yu-Gi-Oh! This has happened to me a couple times. No one's cheated, but I've just played one card and my opponent instantly scooped.
the basic moves, you know? It's so basic, and it's like...
Who are you calling basic, bitch?
Well, the person sitting across from him is none other than Peter Chang. Peter has just made 5 illegal moves in the span of less than 10 minutes.
Oh no.
And his current field on the board is entirely
How do you not
illegal,
use a card?
But the community
Easy.
wasn't surprised because this was not the first time that Peter Chang had done this. You see, the man was previously disqualified and banned from organized play on multiple separate occasions for unsporting conduct, cheating. And for over a decade, Peter Chang was one of the most well-known names on the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Scene. Not necessarily for his skill per se, rather for his antics over the years.
Oh no.
But on this day in particular, his actions would culminate in perhaps the most legendary feature match ever, and luckily for the world, it was live streamed
live
for thousands
twins.
of viewers. Now, to understand the gravity of the situation that we just saw, we're gonna have to rewind just a little bit for context. This is a story of Peter Chang, the most notorious Yu-Gi-Oh! Player of all time. Our story starts over 15 years ago in the year 2009, where...
God. Wait, I wanted to give...
Our story starts over 15 years
until recently,
ago in...
until I picked up the game again 6 months ago, 2012 Dino Rabbit was when I last played. And this is I was playing like Tengu Plant, which is this one, and then Dino Rabbit, which is this rabbit. And by the way, this rabbit used to cost 100 quid a copy. And then you needed 3 of them. And then you needed Tour Guide of the Underworld, which was also 100 quid a copy, and you needed 3 of those as well.
Year 2009, where Peter Chang was an accomplished Yu-Gi-Oh! Player who would travel the world to attend championship-level tournaments composing of thousands of players and rare cards worth lots of money on the line. His prior success included multiple Top Cup finishes at these tournaments, but before he became a semi-big name, Peter was a dominant player in the New Jersey area, winning nearly all of the local and regional tournaments. But how could one man consistently win almost every single tournament? It was a question that many would ask, and over time, people slowly became suspicious about his style of play, and rumors began to spread, to the point where Peter would be known locally as a shady character with a history of connivery beyond the mere rules of the game. Local players would accuse Peter of stacking their decks and shuffling them in a manner that would cause them to draw the worst cards. At the same time, others suggested that he had marked his own sleeves to draw the powerful cards that he wanted. His opponents would basically agree that Peter seemed to open the perfect hands every time, with the player even
you've always got to let your opponent cut the deck
Peter
before
was
you
banned from
give
using
it back.
white sleeves because they were so easily markable. And players
who knew
Peter in real life would claim that he was caught cheating on 7 separate occasions. It became so widely known that even some of Peter's closest friends would not refute this claim. But in light of this, he was never punished officially by the Yu-Gi-Oh! Organized Play Committee, as his hijinks were limited to his local area at the time. Nevertheless, it got to the point where Peter was disqualified from numerous local and regional tournaments, and eventually banned from several local stores. Coincidentally, as Peter's...
Dude, you've got to be a real fucking idiot to be banned from your local card shop, bro. You actually just like have to just be an ass and just be purposefully just wanting people to not like you.
Success flourished, he grew bored of the Jersey scene. I mean, yeah, being banned from several local stores probably didn't help. So he began to travel around the country to attend tournaments on the major circuit. So we're talking about the largest tournaments in the world here.
Oh,
this would prove
speaking of, I'm going to go to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Nationals in a month and just play. I'm not gonna do well. Yeah, I might win like one game. But at nationals, there'll be a lot of good European players from across the whole of Europe there, because it's a national championship. So a lot of Europe, like the best European players will be there. Even when I went to Liverpool like 2 months ago to play at the Open there was people from fucking Bulgaria there, bro, to play in this like smaller event.
Extremely rewarding, for his skills were more than enough to compete on a national level. Peter would quickly make a name for himself, going undefeated at multiple events in a row and threatening even the strongest players at the time, upsetting legendary names like Adam Korn and Jeff Jones. At the same time, he would supplement his travel expenses as a backpack vendor, someone who carried around binders chock full of cards to buy low and resell at a higher price. Though it was technically and still is against the rules to buy and sell with anyone besides the official vendors in the convention hall, back then it was an unspoken taboo where basically everyone would secretly try to buy and sell with each other. Now I know what you're thinking, you probably thought that Peter was a delightful businessman to trade and buy with.
Got something that might interest you.
Unsurprisingly, Peter was known to be extremely hard to deal with, often charging well over the market prices, especially if he knew that the buyer was in a desperate position. And according to a tournament report, one man who was the unfortunate victim of Peter's business practices had said, "When we got to the event, I had to ship $30 for sanctums, ignitions, etc., and got savaged by Peter Chang for like $20. Such to suck. You can imagine my dismay when my teammate Dylan showed up later with a binder full of artifact cards. Except that the other vendors were sold out of the cards, so the man had no choice but to approach Peter. And since Peter knew that the man needed the card for the tournament and round 1 was about to start, he upcharged him. Others would say that Peter would lowball them when buying their cards online. But at the end of the day, though perhaps immoral, none of what he was doing was technically illegal, beyond, well, buying and selling at the venue. The bottom line is Peter needed more money to be able to constantly attend these majors because they were always
this is super common
across the United States and travel and
because Yu-Gi-Oh pricing is really, you don't win money if you win a tournament. The best thing you can win is like a fucking a Nintendo Switch or something crazy. It's not a lot. The real prize is the exclusive card you get. You get like it's an effect veiler card, but it's got a stamp on it saying what tournament that you participated in. So if it's like the national tournament, it will have the nationals logo on it. And those cards, depending on which stamp it has on it, if you have like the world champion one, which only like the top 8 people get, I think, who top that tournament, those cards go for a couple of grand each. Probably more.
Can be pretty expensive. As his play continued, Peter quickly cemented himself as one of the best Lightsworn players in the world. A strategy reliant on self-milling,
selling the card you
powerful
get.
effects in the graveyard to flood the field with monsters. The deck's signature boss, the Judgment Dragon, could only summon itself when 4
JD's so
different Lightsworn
classic.
names were in the graveyard, with its Day of Judgment ability wiping out all other cards on the field. But Peter's opponents complained that he always had the perfect mills, consistently hitting 4 names as early as the second turn, and constantly milling multiple copies of Wolf Lightsworn Beast, one of the deck's powerful methods to swing the game in favor. For it was essentially a free 2100 beater who brought itself back to the field.
Switch.
Though the deck could be pretty inconsistent
The
due
rare
to
cards
the
are
RNG
sick.
factor associated with
if you're the winner, you get to choose a card that gets printed as a giant version which is kind of like your trophy. So you get to like choose which card you want to be as a giant trophy.
milling. In the hands of Peter Chang, the deck always seemed to perform exactly as he wanted it to. And with his devotion to the light, Peter would finish top 4 at Shonen Jump Championship Orlando and top 16 at Shonen Jump Championship Columbus.
Can we get Heavy Stone back?
With his name now commonplace among the elite, everyone would agree that Peter was no doubt a skilled player. But while his accomplishments grew,
look at that jawline, bro. He's marking on me. He's marking on me.
His gameplay, which had now transcended his local community and became known to the world. Online chatter was abuzz buzz on the popular forums at the time. One player would note, Peter Chang has swept multiple events with Lightsworn. It's statistically impossible to go 8+ rounds and not lose multiple times. Factor in Lightsworn's inconsistencies, and you've got someone who is obviously defying the system in some way.
Damn.
To further my claim, he's been asked to change his sleeves during multiple regionals due to marked sleeves. In 3, he's been DQ'd in the top 8 of regionals before. His reputation
Damn.
would rapidly become known, with a chunk of the community
Dude,
calling him Cheater Chang.
if you're
while
going to a
others use
major tournament, you've got to re-sleeve your deck literally the morning of the tournament. Just so that you don't have any, your sleeves are as
spoonerism,
clean as
Cheater
possible.
Pang. With each consecutive tournament that Peter attended, the forums would be abuzz with users following along for updates and potential drama. And boy, would there be drama.
Drama.
At the Shonen Jump Championship in Los Angeles, where after starting with a phenomenal 8-2 record
So is he
and
just
nearly
deck
locking
stacking?
himself into the top cut
Is
yet
that what he's
again
doing?
with Lightsworn, Peter would suddenly be disqualified mid-round. Not explicitly for cheating, but rather for lying to a judge. You see, in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, infractions generally start with warnings. This is to give the player the benefit of the doubt for a genuine mistake, but also
Yeah.
to ensure that players don't try to soft cheat by deliberately performing illegal plays or breaking policy to try and gain advantage. Therefore, multiple warnings or infractions would escalate into steeper punishment, with 2 warnings often granting the player a game loss. Now, apparently Peter had already
True.
received an infraction earlier in the tournament for
Also,
having a marked
white sleeves are the worst for this. Because white sleeves show dirt so much more than any other sleeve, but everybody wants to play with white sleeves. Also, white sleeves tend to be the cheapest. Like if there's a if like a company selling a bunch of sleeves, the white ones are just cheaper. So everyone has them, but they get the dirtiest, bro.
sleeve in his side deck. But later when he was deck checked again in the tournament, that same sleeve in question was still present. Peter allegedly told the new judge that he had no prior warnings in an
start on
attempt
see-through?
to avoid receiving the upgraded penalty. But
I don't
unfortunately,
think at a tournament, I don't think you're allowed to use see-through sleeves. At a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, you have to have solid color sleeves or Konami official sleeves, which are like the ones that they officially make that have designs on, like they would have like a character design on them or something. I don't think you can use see-through, just in case. Like, why though? Just in case, like you like one of your cards has got like a scratch on the back of it or something. So you can, if it's see-through, you can see the back of the card and know which card it is based off like the wear and tear of the card.
for Peter, his statement would be fact-checked with the head judge, resulting in
Like if you go into your locals, I'm sure people don't care if you're playing with no sleeves that much. There's like someone at my local plays with no sleeves. They're like a newer player. We don't really give a fuck. They're not cheating. But if you go into like a major tournament, yeah, you gotta play by the fucking rules, bro.
disqualification for his dishonesty. Word of this quickly spread online like wildfire. The infamous Peter Chang was finally disqualified from a major event. Now, a pro player
Damn.
being disqualified from a tournament in the championship tier was already a rare occurrence. But factoring in Peter's scandalous background and everyone on the internet waiting for exactly this to happen, it certainly spilled the tea. Forums would reach peak traffic,
Damn.
with many flocking to hear the story and also to share their own personal anecdotes about
Damn,
Peter's
you're
gameplay. Now, you
disqualified.
would think this is the end of the line for any regular Yu-Gi-Oh player, but unfortunately, Peter was not a regular player. In fact, this was only the beginning, because such an act of humiliation would only fuel Peter's revenge, igniting his thirst for redemption because he was so close to winning his first championship, and now he wanted to prove himself more than ever. Miraculously for Peter, luck would be on his
Damn.
side, for he would avoid
I wish
any
Light
immediate
Swans was still
punishment
good,
beyond
bro.
disqualification from the event. Apparently, not even a disqualification from a major tournament would put a damper in Peter's shenanigans, because at the Shonen Jump Championships in Edison the following month, yes, during the well-known Edison format, Peter would be caught trying to add
The what Edison?
Edison the following month, yes, during the well-known Edison format.
Yeah, damn, bro. If you don't know what Edison is, basically Edison is like the Smash Melee of Yu-Gi-Oh, bro. It's like, so Edison format is using the exact rules and band list of what happened at this tournament in Edison, in 2010. So, but people, this is like the second most popular way to play Yu-Gi-Oh is Edison. Is using this 2010 band list and format, using like the cards that were available then and the rules that were then, and it's basically like the Smash Melee of Yu-Gi-Oh.
that Peter would be caught trying to add a
Hey,
card
Chasimo.
that was removed from the game back to his hand. But the judges simply gave him a game loss penalty instead of a disqualification because they didn't actually see it happen, and Peter argued that it was an accident. No surprises here. But just 4 months
Lots of
later,
accidents
the
happening to this
chagrin
guy,
of
huh?
the entire community, Peter Chang would pull off the unthinkable.
Dark Lord.
It's May 16th, 2010. Peter Chang has defied all expectations and once again made the top 16 of a championship. But it
Damn.
would only get better for him as he breezes through the top 8 and then the top 4, at long last landing himself in the championship final.
Damn.
And the crowd can't believe it. If Peter Chang wins, I'm learning how to cheat, says one poster online. And finally, when the smoke cleared, a man raises a trophy with one hand and clutches free.
Dude, in Dark Lords, you play this card here. In modern Dark Lords, right? You play this card here on the right, on the left, sorry. Because it summons Archdog Christia for you. Well, it sends Archdog Christia to the grave for you so you can summon it on your opponent's turn. This card is kind of broken. This card that helps you Christia like a modern Dark Lords, which is some diabolical behavior. I didn't play this one. I don't play this one either.
Elusive prize cards in the other. After years of grinding, Peter Chang has finally achieved a championship title by winning the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series Washington. And
With
not just any
gadgets,
regular championship tournament, but the first ever Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series, a prestigious tournament that would replace the previous Shonen Jump Championships, featuring a set of new and elusive ultra-rare prize cards, the 3 Dark Lords. Dark Lord Superbia, Dark Lord Asmodeus, and Dark Lord Ida Ari. And they now belong to Peter. But instead of celebrations and congratulations, the community was largely skeptical, beyond just the mere fact that it was Peter Chang. You see, at this event, Peter pulled off a complete upset. He played a Machina Gadget deck utilizing the Jinzo engine, but it wasn't exactly the most competitive deck. In fact, it was regarded as a significantly weaker deck that paled in power compared to the existing X-Saber and the newly released Infernity decks that were expected to dominate. His strategy was rather simple. The gadget monsters replaced themselves for free card advantage and fueled the Machina Fortress, who could be summoned by discarding another machine from the hand. Next, the Jinzo engine would supplement this, providing the only means of power for the deck to match the pace of the newer strategies.
Bro, what the fuck is that ugly ass Jinzo, bro?
It would enable him to play Future Fusion, one of the strongest cards ever printed, that years later would even have its effect nerfed. But at the time, it allowed him to fusion summon by using resources directly from the deck instead of his hand and field, breaking the game mechanic completely. The monster wouldn't be summoned until the following turn, but that didn't matter because resolving a Future Fusion would allow Peter to dump all of his machine monsters to the graveyard if he declared a summon of the Chimera Tech Overdragon, a boss monster that required Cyber Dragon and any number of machines as fusion material. This also meant he could dump 2 copies of Jinzo and 2 copies of Jinzo Returner from the deck to the graveyard. The baby Jinzos would then trigger, immediately reviving the 2 adult Jinzos, whose effects instantly kick in to negate all trap cards on the field, while presenting 4,800 damage on the board at the same time. From there, he could revive the Machina Fortresses from the graveyard that were also dumped there via Future Fusion, thanks to their special summoning conditions to deal well over 8,000 damage in one single turn, and without any fear of...
Why did... what Konami, how do we know that this Future Fusion was this idea of a fusion card that fusions from deck was broken in 2010? And then they print Brandon Fusion, and then they unlimit it, and then it's at 2, and then they just put it back to 1. They know it's a stupid effect to bring up the fusion from your deck. Just choose any 2 cards, send them to the grave. People want to put the cards... It doesn't matter what they do in the grave. As soon as they hit the grave, you're plussing infinity.
Staple disruptions like Mirror Force or Torrential Tribute. But the rest of the deck just wasn't very consistent and lacked significant combos beyond Future Fusion, which was also limited to 1 copy per deck at the time due to rampant abuse in the past. It was basically the deck's only unfair advantage, so to speak. In addition to the deck being pretty slow, it was also full of bad cards.
Being able to fuse
draw,
using
like
cards
Jinzo,
in the
which
deck, send them to grave is so much faster. You just literally find the cards that you want.
Summon. Even the gadget
and just
monsters
return
were
them
much
to the field
weaker
somehow
than the
from
other
wherever.
monsters on the block, and he would have to power them up using support cards like Solidarity
It's
while
so
relying on
crazy.
trap cards to control the game at his pace. So needless to say that getting carried by 1 card...
Hey, Metamorph is at 1 now? Yeah, I don't... Metamorph at 1 is good. Foolish Barrel at 1 is... sorry, not Foolish Barrel, sorry. Premature Barrel at 1 is good. I like those changes.
winning a 1,000-person tournament.
They're
was
not
pretty
great
OP.
cards.
Which brings us to the conundrum. Peter would have to hard draw the Future Fusion because it wasn't searchable, unless your name is Peter Chan.
Unless your name is Peter Chang. Dude, that's the metamorphosis to what now? It doesn't matter because it's not searchable.
Because after his win, even more
You have to
rumors
draw it.
exploded online, with some players at the event claiming that instead of drawing Future Fusion, Peter would search for it from his deck and add it directly to his hand
how's
when
he adding it
resolving
to
the
his hand?
effects of his gadgets. Since the gadgets could add
Oh.
each other, rather than add the corresponding gadget and reveal it to his opponent as per the game policy, the story goes that Peter would add
What?
the Future Fusion from the deck to his hand face down by accident, say oopsies to the opponent, and then reveal a copy of another gadget that was already in his hand.
Oh, that is no. When you're searching for a card, you got to have your cards. You're searching through your deck for the card. You take it out of the deck and you throw it onto the table in front of you straight away to show your opponent which one you're grabbing. That is the first thing you got to do.
Telling them that that was a card he had searched. Other players would share similar anecdotes of sleight of hand when playing against Peter. Some accused him of deliberately testing illegal plays to see what he could get away with, and allegations of stacking while shuffling and using marked sleeves were again at the forefront. A few players even surmised that Peter may have been taking advantage of a ruling loophole. Though this was never explicitly proven, they would say that Peter may have utilized the effect of Baby Jinzo when it was sent to the graveyard for cost. You probably know by now, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an extremely complex game where card effects are taken extremely literally down to the exact word. And Jinzo
if you want to get better at understanding English, play Yu-Gi-Oh!
Turner reads that when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Jinzo from your graveyard.
Okay, I'm going to explain this before he explains it because I want to sound smart. Okay, so when a card says
that when
on it, it means that has to be the last thing to have happened. Okay. But if a card's if this said if, it could have been as long as it just happened and on the next chain, you're allowed to activate it. But if this is sent as cost for a card, so let's say you discarded this to activate, I don't know, Super Poly or whatever, right? The last thing to happen was the Super Poly resolved, not this being sent to the graveyard. So you can't actually trigger this. But if this said if, and you discarded it for Super Poly, and then once Super Poly resolved, you are then allowed to activate this. I know this because I used to play Gustos back in 2011, and all of them say when. All of them say when. Yeah, if this died to battle and got sent to the graveyard, for example, like it got hit in battle and got sent to the graveyard, you could activate it. But even if this was used for like a fusion summon, using polymerization, the last thing to happen wasn't this going to grave, it was you fusion summoning. It's so, but Konami basically never prints when on a card anymore. Like if they never print this word on a card anymore, basically. 99% of the time this would say if it was printed today.
Card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Jinzo from your graveyard. The keyword being when, which in Yu-Gi-Oh terms means that it can only be triggered at the exact time that the card is sent to the graveyard.
You'd have a judge per player to do the search effect for them to avoid this cheat. Yeah, unfortunately I don't think that's very feasible to assign.
For example, when sent there via Future Fusion or a card like Foolish Burial. Being sent to the graveyard is the last thing that has to happen in order for the effect to meet its activation timing. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, costs take place before a card or a summon resolves. So if Jinzo Returner is sent to the graveyard to pay for the cost of a card, for example, being tributed for a tribute summon, then the last thing to happen is a tribute summon itself and not Jinzo Returner being sent to the graveyard. So the game would automatically skip the trigger timing and the player would be unable to activate the effect. And this is the exact ruling if Jinzo Returner is sent from the hand to the graveyard to fulfill the summoning cost for Machina Fortress. It wouldn't be able to activate because Machina Fortress's summon takes place immediately after the cost, therefore stiffing the activation timing of the Baby Jinzo. This being said, some players online would claim that Peter may have abused this throughout his tournament run. Since this was an obscure ruling that wasn't immediately obvious when reading the card at face value, it's possible that not every player would have known the implications. In the worst case scenario, with Peter taking a warning from the judge if the opponent even bothered to call a judge in the first place. Surprisingly, most Yu-Gi-Oh players are a lot more chill and reserved when it comes to calling judges compared to other trading card games that are out there.
Judge.
Now, the R&D team would later
True.
patch this loophole by rewarding optional when effects to if instead,
Yep.
therefore allowing future cards to activate even when sent to the graveyard by cost in order to
See?
avoid abuse and confusion. But despite the rumors,
I told you,
no one could
I'm smart.
explicitly validate the claims against Peter. While most of the community completely disregarded Machina Gadgets as a viable contender because it was Peter Chang that
if
won
you're
with them,
playing-
there were a few voices that weren't.
And the thing is, though, if you're playing a deck at a higher level, at like a higher tournament level, you should know what your cards do. It's your responsibility to. It's the player's responsibility to maintain a what's the right like the truthful game state or something. I can't remember the exact word, but like it's up to you, both the players, to keep the game state as an accurate game state. So you should know what your cards do.
Fully convinced that Peter had cheated because there wasn't any hard evidence.
Because we play using
in hindsight,
anime rules
it
from our
does seem a little
childhood.
ridiculous that Peter's opponents would be
If
okay
only.
with him searching his deck for a card face down, adding it to his hand, shuffling his hand, and then showing them a random card from their hand that was a gadget.
Rules,
Especially at a
yeah.
competitive championship rules enforcement level, because in Yu-Gi-Oh, any card that's searched from the deck to the hand has to be revealed to the opponent. Now, perhaps Peter may have used other sleight of hand to make this possible, but it's more than likely that this was just a meme that snowballed and spiraled out of control online because of Peter's history of making illegal plays. But on the other hand, to add some more suspicions,
Whoa.
it was also the first major tournament after the release of the Shining Darkness, a powerful set that forever changed the landscape of the game. It
Yeah,
would bring
bro.
power creep to an entirely new level that was never
With
witnessed
Black Wings,
before.
bro.
With the support for X-Saber and the highly anticipated release of Infernity, a deck that defied any prior sense of Yu-Gi-Oh logic. Previously gaining card advantage and resources
Anime rules for Insanity, they made it up. During the Far season, they did. If you go back and watch Duelist Kingdom, it is basically D&D. They just say things and the cards do it. It's supposed to be, like, the Far season is more accurate to a tabletop game, which they just use cards for. And that's why in Battle City, the rules are a lot more regimented. Because that's when they actually made the rules of the game. Because the rules of the game didn't exist during the first season of the anime. Like, the actual rules for the actual game didn't actually exist. And they made them, and then they made the second season.
required setup, often taking multiple turns and being earned as payoffs through difficult means. But the Infernity deck was highly explosive and could overwhelm the field with near endless resources out of nowhere, granting the user the ability to set up a near
some
unbreakable
2010
end board
combo
or just
videos,
attack
bro.
and win in one single turn. The deck's gimmick relied on the user having no cards in their hand, and once the requirement was met, all of the effects became live. Their signature card, the Infernity Archfiend, could search the deck for any Infernity card when it was special summoned. Infernity Necromancer would then revive the Infernity Archfiend, and 3 copies of Infernity Launcher could revive both Archfiend and Necromancer, creating a mini loop as Archfiend would then search for another copy of Infernity Launcher to reborn over and over again. Built-in tuner monsters allowed the deck to summon a plethora of synchro monsters like the Mistworm to spin back the opponent's field,
Mistworm,
while
bro.
Infernity Break could disrupt the opponent's cards. As if this wasn't enough, they also released a TCG exclusive card in the form of Infernity Barrier. This was an in-archetype Solemn Judgment that could negate any opposing card, making the deck complete overkill.
Dude.
X-Saber, on the other hand, was already an existing powerful deck in the metagame. Double X-Saber Gotams could easily
fuck
loop
this
the
card,
opponent's
dude.
hand for multiple cards. Cold Wave and Trap Stun could lock the opponent
Fuck
from using
Gotams.
traps, while Double X-Saber Hyunlei could then destroy up to 3 of them. Their ace main deck monster, the Rescue Cat, could swarm the field and
Aw,
even enable
kitty.
crazy degenerate turn 1 combos. But the Shining Darkness would introduce another TCG exclusive, this time for the X-Sabers as Double X-Saber Dark Soul, who allowed the player to search for an X-Saber monster during the end phase of the turn that it was sent to the graveyard. The exact card that the deck lacked for follow-up and resource management, because now we had a body that we could synchro away while getting a search in the end phase. The other TCG exclusive, Double X-Saber Bogart Knight, allowed the player to special summon another X-Saber monster from their hand, easily placing 2 bodies onto the field to enable Double X-Saber Fall Troll. There was just one one problem. A search is not exactly the term I should use for Double X Saber Dark Souls effect. You see, this was the first card that was worded in such a way where the search would be delayed, causing uncertainty about how it would work.
Like
Previously, cards
Magnum
like Sangan would trigger immediately when they were sent from the field to the graveyard, and we didn't have any precedent for something that would search.
Well, like Mirror Jade.
Therefore, it was left to the judge's interpretation, and they would rule that Dark Soul triggered immediately when he was sent from field to the graveyard, meaning that the same copy of Dark Soul could be resurrected and sent there yet again, accumulating multiple searches off of one single copy. Though this would later be overruled years later, at the time it would push X-Sabers to even greater heights than ever imaginable. And armed with heavy graveyard disruption like the DD Crow and the anti-Dark Floodgate Consecrated Light, the deck could go toe-to-toe with Infernity, resulting in a stalemate of power, with 7 X-Saber and 7 Infernity decks both making the top 32 cut of the tournament. So you can probably see why it was borderline impossible for Machina Gadgets, a deck that had received 0 new support from this game-breaking brand new set, to defeat multiple X-Saber and multiple Infernity decks across 15 rounds to win this tournament. And in the finals of this event,
he's just using an old deck.
Were watching the match from every possible angle to ensure that Peter Chang did not pull any shenanigans. I'm not even joking. This was actually what happened. Yeah, they really wanted to cover their bases. And with the pressure on, he would defeat YPFL Stephen Harris, an Infernity player. It's
just a ruling nightmare card.
Enough, Peter knew was not playing the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. Fortress Dragon was a direct counter to any machine deck, for it was a unique fusion monster that could be made without polymerization. Rather, the card introduced the concept of contact fusion, allowing the user to simply send away the fusion materials
we call that link summoning
to
now.
the graveyard, as long as they were all present on the field. It was specifically printed as a
plus jargon could friendly summon anyway.
Machine decks that had plagued the game over the past couple of years, and its fusion materials would require Cyber Dragon plus any number of machine monsters from either side of the field. This meant that a regular player could even utilize Peter's own Cyber Dragon alongside his other machine monsters to wipe his entire board on a whim. But at the very last minute before submitting his deck list, Harris decided to play an additional Synchro monster over Chimera Tech, theorizing that nobody would be crazy enough to play Machina Gadgets at this event. But evidently, Peter was crazy enough. This meant that he was able to keep his Cyber Dragon on the field without any fear of his machines being wiped away by one single fusion summon, adding additional pressure to his board, ultimately contributing to his victory alongside the fact that Harris somehow drew the worst possible hands. The forums went absolutely crazy. Peter Chang, who everyone thought to be an egregious cheater, had won a championship event, and with the last deck anyone would have possibly imagined. Players had already begun buying out X-Saber and Infernity cards overnight with the expectation that one of these two decks would easily sweep the event. But they were wrong. He had to have cheated, said the community, who completely dismissed Peter's victory with such an unconventional strategy. But outside of the allegations of potential misconduct, many players also brought forward anecdotes about
he won a
Peter's
PS4,
overall
bro.
character, with some claiming that he was highly egoistical and erratic, often rushing his opponents into making misplays, angle shooting, or carelessly grabbing their cards.
Was he
without
shocking,
permission.
bro?
Others even hated his voice. It seemed like everyone had a reason to dislike the man, even more so now that he
hate it, bro. I hate it if somebody doesn't ask to just like see my card. Like 99.999999999% of the time, I'll say yeah, that's fine. But just like ask. Like if somebody says, "Oh, can I just read your card?" You just like, if you're not sure what a card does, right? Your opponent's card does. You should just go, "Is it okay if I just read this real quick?" Just ask. Like no, like I bet you 99% of the time, no one's gonna say no.
The championship title. But regardless of whether or not Peter cheated, the general consensus seemed to agree that he was highly annoying to play against. In a Reddit thread titled, "What's the worst player you ever dueled?" on the r/Yu-Gi-Oh subreddit, a hefty amount of replies were about Peter Chang.
Oh,
it
no.
seemed that a lot of players on the competitive circuit had witnessed his shenanigans at one point or another. With the spotlight illuminating his elevated notoriety, players began to complain about his apparent invulnerability. It seemed that no matter what penalties or disqualifications Peter received, he would receive no further suspensions. I don't cheat. It's just I'm good and you're not, he would proclaim online. But some players decided to take matters into their own hands. You see, at a regional tournament just a week after his championship win, Peter would get jumped by a group of rare hunters trying to steal the coveted prize cards that he had brought with him to show off. But luckily for him, he would narrowly avoid disaster. And if you didn't believe that Yu-Gi-Oh could be serious business, well, now you know. As a result, Peter would take a low profile over the next couple of weeks, but quickly found himself back into the swing of things
Did he
to
actually
test
get
for the
jumped?
upcoming national
That's
championship,
crazy.
the largest tournament of the year that would qualify a handful of players for the prestigious World Championship. But only 2 months later, things would finally devolve for this devoted duelist. In the year of 2010, Peter would attend the Yu-Gi-Oh! National Championship, and inside
Wow.
of the convention
Imagine how
hall
stinky
during
that
check-in
room
on
is.
Friday, he would sit down at a table with friends to work on their deck list and collectively theorize what the best tech cards would be. But as they lost themselves in the conversation, a judge suddenly tapped Peter on the shoulder, and at that moment, he would inform Peter that he was banned from organized play, effective immediately. Apparently as a further consequence of his original disqualification from Shonen Jump Los Angeles earlier that year, but also as an additional penalty in regards to another disqualification from a regional tournament that took place at some point between his championship victory and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Nationals. But the
Damn.
rules committee would have to confer with their higher-ups to determine whether or not a suspension was warranted. And though it took
Damn,
some
he just
time,
got thrown
they had
out.
finally come to the green light to ban Peter Chang from organized play. After being caught on multiple different occasions with suspicious shuffling, conspicuous sleeves, performing illegal plays,
Damn,
and
bro.
numerous penalties and multiple disqualifications, Peter's guardian angel
Like,
had done all it could, and the
why do you
consequences
keep
had
doing it if
finally
you've
caught
been
up to him.
caught?
And at that very moment, Peter would be forced to leave not only the venue, but also the game itself for the next few years. Understandably, he was completely crushed. This was a devastating blow to a large part of his life that he devoted so much time and effort to. But if there's at least one takeaway from the story so far, we know that Peter was extremely determined. And even a forceful setback like this would not stop him.
Oh no.
5 years later, Peter Chang would return with an even greater vengeance. By now, the game was a lot more popular, and events were getting way more players than
5
before.
years
and
later?
at the same time, not only had the power creep completely changed the game itself, but there were also complex online simulators where the best players could practice, competitive
Bruh.
articles and guides available online,
Some
and
DB
less
action.
secrets that were held by the inner circles of the pro players. It was a completely new generation of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Online forums were slowly being drained of their culture as a trend towards social media and Facebook groups had facilitated discussion and theory, pushing even the
Or this
average
still
player-
happens, by the way, is that there's like Facebook groups for specific decks, and which you can just join and ask stuff about, or like Discords that are just about like a bunch of people just sharing their like decks. It's crazy. You just see people talking about certain
at the
decks
time
on like
to one that would
Facebook
have
groups.
dominated the scene only 5 years prior. But Peter, of course, was still following the game even during his ban. And now that he could enter tournaments and sanctioned events once again, he quickly adapted. Defeating thousands of players, he would make top 32 of both
Damn.
YCS Columbus and the National Championship in 2015 with his new favorite deck, the Teller Knights. A strategy whose signature monster ironically searched for another copy
Oh,
of
no.
the Teller Knight monster from his deck, just like the gadgets.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Peter seemed to love cards that would search his deck. It was almost a combination of his two favorite decks in the past, Lightsworn and Gadgets. His confidence with the Teller Knights would also propel him to win the
Bro, the
Ultimate
Teller Knights
Duelist
look
series,
cool.
an exclusive
Like, the actual,
tournament
like, monster
comprising of the
designs are
nation's
so
top-ranked
sick.
players, granting him the championship belt and also 2 buys for the first 2 rounds of all foreseeable tournaments to come. This was a prestigious achievement that only the upper echelon of duelists had ever attained, once again engraving Peter Chang into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! History. It quickly became obvious that Peter Chang was once again a force to be
Maybe we can
reckoned
get that
with,
video out another
though
time.
whether due to pure skill was less than debatable, at least according to the general opinion online. His explosive resurrection was certainly less than the community had anticipated, but at the same time, it reinvigorated the excitement of having a scandalous player in the relatively calm competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Scene. And in the following year, Peter Chang would find continued success, landing himself in the top 16 of YCS Columbus, again with Teller Knights, and in the top
Damn.
32 of YCS Providence with Cosmo. It was without a doubt that
Damn.
the man had a compelling mind when it came to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! While other players experimented with different options, Peter was an early pioneer of utilizing just one singular deck across multiple events until mastery, a notion that would become popular years later. His core theory and methodology within the game was definitely well ahead of its time, but unsurprisingly,
I'm a
Peter's
believer in
tactics
that.
would once again
Like, stick with a deck that you like and just get good at that deck. I've been like that with Artmage. I've stuck with that deck for like the last 5 months. I've got so much better with it, and it just got new cards. And it's I feel like once you know like once you fully understand what every card can do in every situation, that's when like things start to get really, really cool. Hisagova.
Again catch up with them. And at the start of the 2017 season, Peter would be disqualified and banned yet again for an extended period of time. With his legacy frozen, the community would largely forget about Peter Chang once again, but nothing would prepare them for what would happen next.
Oh no.
If you're enjoying this video, I just want to let you know that there's a lot more content like this in the horizon, so thanks for hitting that subscribe button and liking the video.
I'm just saying,
Both
these are
of
just so.
Both of these monsters cannot be on the field right now.
Like,
I'm just saying, like,
Chill out
I'm
with that
just
choice.
saying. I'm just saying, cause.
Just saying.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying the moves are so basic. Oh my freaking
Oh
god.
my god, what is this guy chatting, bro?
In 2017, competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Had grown to be extremely popular. But in the competitive scene, there was a pressing issue. Players had slowly become disillusioned with the way that the game was being run officially. Formal rulings, like for XX Saber Dark Soul, were often delayed for months or years, because Konami Japan overseas was in charge of setting up these rulings and giving context to the judges, but for whatever reason, they just never did.
That isn't
Tournaments
even
also failed
true
to
anymore.
distribute any cash prizing, providing
Because there are cards in the OCG, like the Asian rules for the game, that are different than the one for the TCG, like the Western rules. Like the biggest card, like Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill, fundamentally works different in Japan than it does here in the West. And I think it's the same on Master Duel. I think it works the Japanese way on Master Duel, but like the TCG way, it's just a bad card.
only prize cards and playmats instead, which was hardly a consolidation considering a lot of the players were spending hundreds and thousands of dollars to travel and accommodate themselves for these major tournaments. Not to mention the other popular card games at the time all had lucrative cash prizes.
Wow,
Whereas
cash prizes
Yu-Gi-Oh,
in
making
Yu-Gi-Oh?
even the top 16 of a 2,000-man tournament would mean you get a felt playmat and some booster packs as the sole
Hell
prize.
yeah.
The ridiculousness of which would expand into top 8 with players receiving an Xbox 360 when the Xbox One had already been out for nearly 1 full year.
Oh,
So
dear.
basically, to earn your money back or to be profitable, so to speak, as a professional Yu-Gi-Oh player, you would have to make top 3 at the very minimum in order to get a copy of the prize card that could be sold for significant value on the secondary market. So needless to say, a lot of the players had become slowly more and more disillusioned and were pissed off. But a large and popular Texas game store named Ultra Reality Games, or ARG for short, took advantage of the situation and launched their own circuit of tournaments. And you guessed it, with cash money on the line. Much like the Star
Ooh.
City game circuit for Magic the Gathering, these events were pushed by many pro players who partnered with the brand and boasted better policies, up-to-date rulings, and a generous lump sum should you win or place well in the tournament. They would put a focus on
Nice.
content and social media, live streaming each event, and often with commentary from prominent players on the mic, providing a feel that was akin to that of early Smash Brothers tournaments like Genesis or grassroots tournaments in the FGC. Feature matches were chosen by the audience with a focus specifically on well-known players, and tournament records of these players and their storylines were placed at the forefront of coverage. Rivalries and grudge matches were common, top-notch content that would have never been featured on an official Yu-Gi-Oh
Games
channel.
WWE style.
Let's go. All right, you gonna talk shit? You can talk shit to my face. All right.
Damn, bro.
So Tennessee beating this motherfucker's ass for $500. You better sure you bring that shit.
But most importantly, these
the
tournaments
fuck?
generated immense hype for
What's
the
this guy
game, which was
chatting?
never before seen. It would be the perfect stomping grounds for Peter, for he was otherwise suspended from official tournament play. And unsurprisingly, Peter would instantly set his focus on grinding the ARG circuit, attending several events with little problem, and receiving a handful of feature matches, to which the YouTube comments could be pretty amusing. But one particular match would catch the attention of the entire world and bring the spotlight on Peter Chang once more. ARG Championship Series Springfield 2017. It's round 5 and Peter is currently 5-0. He sits down to meet face-to-face with Fraser Smith, a pro player with a championship win himself, alongside dozens of other accolades.
Damn.
Fraser had previously won YCS Atlanta using a unique Gravekeeper strategy during a graveyard-based plant synchro metagame, but he had since taken a break for some time and was just returning to the game. The tournament format would revolve around Zodiac, a powerful engine that could be played as its own pure
Furries.
deck, or splashed into other strategies. They would completely break the Xyz mechanic, which previously allowed the player to summon out an extra deck monster by stacking 2 or more monsters with the same levels on top of each other. But with the
I
Zodiacs,
love
the extra
Xyz.
deck
I think
monsters could be
Xyz is
overlaid on
really
top
fun
of
as a
one
mechanic in the
single
game.
monster. It was textbook power creep at its finest. Zodiac Broadbow could search for another Zodiac monster from the deck, while Zodiac Trident was an endboard piece that could destroy a face-up card during either player's turn. Now this of course already generated unreal advantage from just one single monster, being able to search for a card to replace itself and then also destroy a card on your turn and another card on the opponent's turn at the minimum. But it gets even better. You see, their signature monster, the Zodiac Rapier, could special summon 2 more copies of itself from the deck whenever it was overlaid as a material. The new copies of Rapier could then be overlaid into any other rank 4, with Daigusto Emerald being the premium choice, for it could then recycle back the Zodiac Rapiers to draw a card.
My Gusto card is getting used for shenanigans.
The Pendulum Zodiac strategy with Metaphors, Peter would instead combine his Zodiacs with the Infernoid engine. It seems that Peter would be nostalgic about prior decks that he'd seen success with, for just like the Lightsworns, the Infernoids were heavily mill reliant. They could resurrect themselves from the graveyard by banishing other Infernoids, and had explosive effects that could wipe the entire
Dude, the word
field,
Noid is so weird. Like, it sounds so
monster effect with Deviati. But the Zodiacs meshed really well into this strategy because the Rapier combo could end on Bujinte Kagutsuchi, a rank 4 who could mill 5 cards from the top of the deck. So imagine being able to search a Zodiac monster, pop up to 2 cards, and also mill 5 cards from the top of your deck thanks to one lone monster. That's how broken the Zodiac engine was. But that's not all, because the deck also had access to one of the strongest in-engine cards ever printed, and also very much like Peter's favorite card, the Future Fusion. You see, just like Future Fusion, Void Imagination let the user fusion summon by using monsters from their deck, as long as the opponent controlled a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck. This would be used to fusion summon
from
the
deck
Infernoid
again, bro.
Chimera, who could be made using any number of Infernoid monsters. Meaning, just like the Chimera Tech Overdragon, the user would effectively send all of the Infernoid names from their deck to the graveyard, which of course could be brought back using their own effects. Upon summon, Infernoid Tiara would allow both players to send the top 3 cards of their deck to the graveyard, and also 3 cards from the extra deck to the graveyard as well, allowing Peter to send copies of Elder Entity Entis to pop a free card on the field, Cyframe Lord Omega to disrupt the opponent's graveyard, or just additional copies of Tiara to serve as fodder to banish from the graveyard to resurrect the other Infernoids. An unfathomable level of advantage from one single card.
Graveyard shenanigans, bro.
If Void Imagination resolved, the game was effectively over on the spot. The Infernoid Zodiac deck had everything that Peter liked in the past, from milling to activating Future Fusion. But the downside, of course, was having to play Infernoid monsters who really aren't that appealing to draw on their own. But here's where the deck had an edge. It could take advantage of That Grass Looks Greener, one of the strongest cards in the
fuck
history
this card
of the game.
too, bro.
Grass would allow the user to mill cards from the top of their deck equal to the difference in their deck size and the opponent's. Since the minimum deck count was 40, most players would play exactly this number to maximize the chances of drawing the strongest cards in their deck. With Grass, however, the player could easily max their deck count to 60, meaning a guaranteed mill for at least 20 cards against most opponents that were playing 40, or even more cards if the opponent went first and had already thinned their deck via searching. Resolving Grass would fill the graveyard with a plethora of Infernoids and also Fairy Tale Snow, a monster with an on-demand
this card just got unbanned as well.
Graveyard, just like Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Upon summon, Snow was a disruption as it flipped an opposing monster face down. And for this reason, with Grass being so overpowered, the deck also played 3 copies of Left Arm Offering, a card that can search for any spell card in your deck, including Grass, but at the steep cost of banishing the player's entire hand. And game 1 would start with Peter winning the die roll, activating Left Arm Offering, only to discard his entire hand to the graveyard instead of banishing it.
Oh
His
no.
very first action of the game was an illegal play that was so egregiously illegal that it's honestly kind of surprising. The card itself says banished. If it discarded, it would be way too broken, especially with a graveyard-based deck that wants to mill. Peter's excuse later on would be that he had only picked up the deck 5 minutes prior to the tournament, and his friend had made the deck completely for him, even though it was round.
What? That's such a shit excuse. if you're going to a tournament with a deck, you need to know what your cards fucking do, bro. Like, you can't just rock up and say somebody else gave me the cards.
5 and both players.
I don't
were
give a fuck.
undefeated. On
You're
top of
playing
this,
them.
He did this in a feature match that was live streamed in 4K HD to thousands of people around the world. But what was more shocking was the fact that neither Fraser nor the judge would immediately catch this. Though in Fraser's defense, he did mention that he was on hiatus and took a long time break, so he didn't really know all of the cards to the exact wire. Of course, the chat at the time would go completely bonkers, having caught the error and attempting to notify the commentators and the staff. Though some time would pass before someone finally caught wind of it, so play would continue as normal, with Peter activating the search copy of Grass, now milling a large chunk of his deck, which surprisingly lacked a chunk of Infernoid names. In fact, it was probably one of the worst possible mills. But he would be able to bring back an Infernoid Deviati by banishing the few 3 names that he did have in the graveyard, including at least one that he happened to discard with left arm offering, meaning that the first illegal play had now created a second illegal play.
Oh no.
Play passes over to Fraser, who then normal summons a copy of Eccentric Archfiend, now threatening the Deviati. So Peter is forced to banish 7 cards from his graveyard to resurrect the Fairy Tale Snow and flip face down the Archfiend Eccentric. But as Fraser lays down his next 2 cards,
play is immediately halted.
The head judge sits down at the table.
That's some
been
crazy
alerted from the
behavior,
Twitch chat
bro.
that something fishy, to say the least, had occurred earlier in the game.
Oh, you have to banish your hand? He discarded his hand.
I discarded mine, yeah.
At this point, this should be game loss, insta. In a tournament, if you played your cards wrong, this should be insta game loss.
Neither Fraser nor Peter can remember the original contents of Peter's hand, so the judges have no choice but to huddle together and talk it over. After a few minutes of heavy deliberation, the judges return to the table to inform the players that the game state is now irreparable because so much has happened since Peter discarded his hand. Peter argues that it's his first time playing the deck and he had no idea, and even asks them to rewind the stream to try and piece together their hands so play can be rewinded. But at this point, it's kind of hard to do that when a bajillion cards have been milled
if you don't know what your
and
cards
an entire
do.
turn has passed.
It's
It's
going
your
to be
fault.
a procedural error for both players, a warning for Frazier, and a game loss for you. As you do gain mass advantage from not banishing your hand there.
Okay, you did get a game loss.
Earlier, I mean, it was just right here.
I mean, to be honest, a game loss is
getting
the
lower end of the
minimum
deck.
for something that happens like this. I could be taking you over to a table and talking to you right now, but I'm not, because I don't think
So
it was
this is-
intent. I
okay,
think it was
so-
just accidental.
Instead of being grateful to the head judge, who had given Peter the minimum possible penalty,
Damn,
as he
bro.
didn't believe that Peter deliberately made the illegal play, a salty Peter complains that the table judge
I'm
should
coming
have caught
in
his
on
illegal
more
play
TCG player
earlier and not
card
waited until
read.
Fraser actually drew
True.
his card for turn, even though it was his own fault in
Well,
the first place that the illegal
yeah.
play even happened.
George should have just said something earlier.
You should.
You know what I'm saying?
No one at this table knew what that.
Yeah, I'm saying you should have said something earlier, not
Yeah.
let it go to your turn and then say something.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have happened if you knew what your cards fucking did.
Don't be mean, Peter.
No, I'm just saying.
I understand. Don't be mean.
Just saying. If they had said it earlier, we could have fixed that.
Absolutely, but
Peter receives a game loss
Yeah, but
penalty,
it's you-
so
but
he's now down 0-1.
it
in the
wouldn't have
best of
happened in the
three.
first place if you
Community
read your
goes
fucking
absolutely
cards.
Crazy. Twitch chat, Reddit, Facebook groups are all once again talking about Peter Chang. Cheater Pang had returned.
What are they saying? Oh, great. This is gonna look bad.
Yeah.
Always is.
There's some uncomfortable silence as the two
Damn,
players side
bro.
deck for the next game, with Peter opting to go first since he lost. He looks at his hand for a minute, pondering.
Bro,
then
that's
activate-
crazy, bro. If you cheated and then you get the game loss, you get to choose to go fast again. That's crazy. I think if you get a game loss for breaking the rules, you don't get to choose if you go fast or second. Your opponent still gets the choice. I think that should be an exception.
Zodiac Barrage to special summon a Zodiac Rapier from his deck, commencing the Rapier combo by overlaying into Borbo, then Tiger Mortar, detaching Bor so he can special summon a second copy of Rapier from the deck via its own effect. Standard plays, of course. He then proceeds further into the combo, overlaying Broadbow over Tiger Mortar, resetting the first Rapier's effect so it can be used to special summon a third copy from his deck. But as he goes through his deck for the other Rapier, he shortcuts the other effect of Zodiac Broadbow, who can detach a material to search for a Zodiac monster. Except Peter completely forgets to detach a material for the cost of this effect. Illegal play number 3 of this match. This also makes it so he only has 2 monsters in his graveyard, which skips his next play as he's not allowed to legally use the effect of his Daigusto Emerald to shuffle back 3 monsters from the graveyard into the deck. Since there's
Bro, what is this over? Bro, this is so messy. Like, why are they so not overlaid? Like, why are they? I hate this. They should. This is like, oh god.
There's only 2 monsters in the graveyard at the time of the activation.
I hate how this looks.
You have to have
Oh, right, I'm sorry.
I need to pay attention.
Yeah, like.
I need to pay attention.
Give me a second.
Yeah, what'd you do wrong, Peter? What did you do?
Yeah, like,
This
You
combo
forgot
always
to
ends with Daigusto
detach, so
Emerald.
there was in a guard in the. I think this one might have been a fuck up.
Illegal play number 4. Now, I genuinely
I think that one was a genuine just forgetting to detach. I don't think that was that bad. But it is pretty funny. But he has been pretty annoying.
only want to believe that Peter made
I didn't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, and this pissed me off.
an honest mistake here, because it's certainly not in his favor if he can't resolve the Daigusto Emerald to draw the free card. But it seems like he initially caught himself when he goes to detach and realizes that it's an illegal action. But then he tries to go through with it again before the judge stops him. So take that for what you will. Now at this point, both Peter and his opponent are confused and are wondering what the heck he just did, because the current game state makes absolutely 0 sense.
I'm so done with this game. I don't want to play anymore.
Damn, bro.
I don't want to play anymore. I'm done. I want to go home.
Same.
I have no idea what just happened.
What should have been an extremely linear and standard combo line has somehow been fudged, and the numbers are just not adding up. As Peter mutters to himself, he proceeds to activate Void Banishment to try and search for Void Feast. A trap
He
card
totally
that
knows what
strengthens
he
his
was
end board
doing.
and would summon out
100% he
more
knows. I think he realized that when he went to detach, something was wrong. But I genuinely think he in this one in this instance, I think he did just forget, but he caught himself on the detach of the Emerald that something was wrong. But I think he just generally forgot on this one. I think this one, it might have been an accident, 100%. Still,
noise during
you
the
can't,
opponent's
you
turn,
can't.
all while asking himself what the hell he
It
just did
is
wrong.
his
But little
fault.
does he know,
Still,
he's about to make illegal play number 5, though we'll get back to this in a second. At this moment, the table judge points out that he hadn't detached from his Broadbow for the effect of Rapier earlier, something that's still easily fixable, though technically at a warning for Peter, which the judge forgets to give him.
Chat told me to remind you to detach for something. Detach for bull search. Oh, I guess it was that. You probably were supposed to detach for that.
damn, bro.
Okay. All right. So that's like wait, something happened. That's why.
Something went wrong.
Yes.
To make things even more confusing, Peter then asks the judge if he still has to activate the Void Banishment, or if they can rewind to him shuffling and drawing a card first.
So do I even still need to do this first? Because I was originally gonna do that.
Oh god, I don't want to play.
Oh my god.
Don't ask me anything.
All right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
What happened?
Yeah, 5 illegal plays in tournament is crazy.
God, can this not be
But it's caused him to fuck up the rest of his card now, and it's just caused him into a state of awfulness.
Peter decides that the outcome
Because
is
he
the same
misplayed,
anyways,
because
so
he misplayed earlier on, it's caused his line to be so fucked. Like a perfect line to go into something that's fucked. Like that's so audible.
proceeds with his next play.
Yes. Just stay here. Just saying.
Yo, please.
Peter overlays for Zodiac Trident and then tributes the Daigusto Emerald to summon out Vanity's Fiend, a powerful card that he brought in from his side deck.
Fuck this card, bro. This card's being seen played again, and it's like this card isn't actually good. But if you don't draw one of your like 5 cards that beat this card, you just lose. It's so annoying.
That locks his opponent out.
It's like
from
such a
special summoning.
50-50 card.
As if this wasn't enough, he then passes his turn and flips up the anti-spell fragrance, locking the opponent completely out of any spell
okay.
cards
I
during their turn.
I do not believe he top decked Vanity's Fiend and Anti-Spell. Nah, I don't believe that. I believe those were added to his hand at some point.
With the Void Beast poised to summon out 3 Infernoids during Fraser's
I do not
turn,
believe
and the Vanity's
that.
Fiend preventing him from summoning any monsters, this is effectively an unbreakable end board that should be an automatic win for Peter. Even worse for Fraser is the fact that he drew his
Anti-Spell at 1 back then?
Takum Tomborg, a useless engine piece that you'd never want to draw. While Fraser would have probably scooped up his cards immediately against any other player, in the back of his head he still knew that he was playing against Peter Chang. And if the first game was any indication,
maybe
anything can happen.
Maybe something's gonna happen.
Peter Chang. And the longer that you stay in the game, the more likely it is that he might have made an illegal play, which he did, because a judge suddenly pauses the game yet again.
So wait. Why can't he summon Dragon?
That's all chat said. He cannot summon Dragon, so I assume the condition is not there. Oh god, what is happening now?
Yeah, Void
Oh, is it because you activated that card? Does that card do something?
Yeah, does that unlock him?
Normal special summon monsters other than Infernoids.
So this is why I was supposed to do this first. So.
Oh my. It's your fault though, bro.
It's another game state.
I'm done. I just what is happening?
Someone in the chat had noticed that Peter cheated yet again by summoning non-Infernoid monsters after resolving his Void Vanishment.
Damn, bro.
You see, Void Vanishment has a line of text at the very end that says for the rest of the turn after you resolve this card's effect, you cannot summon any monsters except for Infernoids. And Fraser even picked up this card to read earlier, but it has so much text that it was just easy to miss.
You can discard
Damn,
one card
bro.
Void from your deck, except okay. Also, you cannot normal summon for the rest of the turn. Okay.
So in this very basic combo
Hell
line,
no.
Peter had effectively messed up everything. He was supposed to summon out the Zodiac Trident and Vanity's Fiend before activating the Void Vanishment as the final layer of his combo, so the monster lock wouldn't matter. But he didn't.
So you can't even summon Vanity's Fiend?
No.
Oh my god.
See, I told you this was supposed to be done
Yeah.
first, and then this is supposed to be at the end. But you know.
Yeah, this is so.
You can't do this or this.
Yeah, no, he can't do either
I'm
of that.
so
That's what I'm
That's the
saying.
issue of Yu-Gi-Oh! The wall of text.
Yo,
And
can't
then,
do
like, he
either one
say
of
I had to
these
do
things. Your
this
whole
wrong.
field
Yeah, there's a lot of
Because
text.
we activate last. I knew that.
And the locks on cards are a lot more prominent now as well, with like these locks where like say that you can only summon certain types of cards after you use a card. That's super common on cards now to stop things from being too powerful. It's crazy.
Oh my God.
This is the most.
You went from a game one, game lost to.
Oh my God.
And then.
It's
then
not
you
like
went-
it's intentional.
Okay, so you didn't even somehow you pulled off activating an XC without detaching.
I'm good, Brody. Yeah.
That's why I said, like, where did it go wrong? Like, this happens all
Yeah,
the
he went to
time.
go for that
And
Gustav
now,
roll.
Right.
and now you have Dryden Vanities, which is a procedural area.
After.
You do know where this is going, Peter.
But I'm just saying, like, it's not intentional. Like, you know, these moves are just. I don't.
Yo,
The radius are
I
going
know, but I'm just saying, these are just so.
Both of these monsters cannot be on the field right now.
Like,
Right,
you
yeah,
know,
no.
you know where a procedural area
Oh.
goes after. A
I
procedural
know,
game
but I'm
so-
saying, like, this was. Like, I don't know how it walked up to this. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is so. It's so.
Peter realizes this, but
That's
has little to say
crazy.
beyond
Basic, and
The
it's
end
like
result- the end-
these moves are just so basic. They're not like.
Pretty
And
much
these are just
outgoing.
like
Someone
basic
else
moves from these.
Someone talking
you
to
know.
board.
God, this is like the most common basic moves, and it's like.
Then why are you messing
No,
them
I'm
up?
just saying, cause.
the chat and the head judge were really
Is it basic,
unamused.
bro?
In addition to this, Peter had got away scot-free without receiving even a warning for his illegal plays earlier in the match. He doesn't really have anything to defend himself with besides his new catchphrase.
These moves are just like the basic moves. You know? Oh my freaking god! And it's just the basic.
Dude,
move.
it is.
Not even
It's
like,
so his
oh,
fault
it's so
though.
basic. I'm just saying the moves are so basic.
You should know what your cards
The moves
fucking
are just so
do.
basic, It's unreal what's happening.
Because they were technically basic moves, but he kept repeating himself as if there was some sliver of hope that the judges would let him rewind and actually do the combo the right way.
It's not like there was any interaction with this move. They're just basic moves. This was like.
Oh my
not
god.
even like
Someone
there
needs
was
a
any
manual?
interaction. This is
Yeah.
where it went wrong.
I think he went wrong getting into the car this morning.
I keep hearing basic, and I'm like, I feel like he's a white girl right now.
He's like, it's so basic, it's so basic.
Either way, the match is
Oh my god.
It's a basic turn one move. It's not even like this was like. It's not even like there was any interaction in the game.
Yeah, that's the worst part, bro. That's the worst part is he didn't fumble because Frazier was doing something in response to like mess up his combo. He just tripped over his own fucking hands.
I need my inhaler. Oh, this is so unreal.
Like he cheated himself.
You've actually left me
I'm
with that
just
choice.
saying.
At one point, he would seemingly get annoyed and would even proceed to blame the judges.
Because he keeps coming over and saying, I'm just saying, but you guys are not saying, and why are you not saying it after the move is done?
Because it's your fault, bro.
Saying that they didn't point out his illegal moves and they were distracting him by walking back and forth to his table to check on the game.
This is unreal. I hope you know. I just hope you know. I'm letting you know. Oh my god. He literally did nothing. And like no one is like saying this after the move's already done.
Yeah, because it's
Thanks, Judge. You're a real help, by the way.
it's your
If it was anybody else,
responsibility
that
to
would have
maintain a
had
proper
slide.
game state, you idiot.
I have no comments.
It's just the judge's responsibility to tell you when you haven't.
Just insane.
The stream chat went absolutely crazy. Fraser had only played a total of 4 Yu-Gi-Oh cards,
This is like
only
20
to win the
20 times a
match
second,
2-0,
yeah,
including a game that was basically unwinnable.
Yeah, this has to be crazy on stream. I just know.
I know.
I just know the stream has been going crazy.
You're
I've literally
sitting here
drawn
and
2
you're not
hands.
saying it. That's why I said
Game
just
1,
sit
Summon
here.
Archfiend Eccentric. Game 2, Summon Talking Tomboy. And this is all I've done in the last
Oh
30
my
minutes.
freaking god.
Actual hard evidence of Peter's shenanigans had finally unraveled to the world in front of thousands of people watching. The legendary
dude,
moment
the
would
SpongeBob
forever
music.
be embedded in Yu-Gi-Oh history. Peter's defense? It was apparently his first time ever playing the deck, and Peter's friend had helped them build the deck before the tournament.
So what happens when you tell somebody build you a deck
Alright.
and you have no idea how to play it? Unbelievable.
Now, as funny as it sounds, I
that's-
honestly think I might
yeah.
actually agree with Peter here. I don't think he deliberately tried to cheat, at least not in the second game. His sequence of play was so counterintuitive, and he had nothing to gain from it. In fact, if he played his basic combo the way that he should have in the second game, his hand was
I think he just
basically an
didn't know
automatic
his
win.
cards,
The
which
head
is
judge
his-
was also
which
quite
is his fault
reasonable,
style.
and he didn't believe that Peter's actions were deliberate.
So,
It's also my first time playing this deck
so
too,
Peter,
but
here's the plus side. Is
Oh my
I don't
God.
think you're purposely cheating.
no, but it's so
And I'm not going to
basic.
DQ you.
I'm just saying the moves are so basic,
And
and it's
that's what you
just.
should be happy with.
But it's not that. It's
wanna
just
breathe.
the
Yeah.
moves are just so basic. It's unreal what's happening.
So Peter
Yeah,
would
but it's
receive
his
only a
fault
match penalty
still.
and not a disqualification, allowing him to play further into the tournament. But he wouldn't do too hot, having been pretty tilted from this match, to say the least. The match would be posted throughout social media, forums, Facebook groups, Reddit. Everyone in the community would witness the hilarity. And more than anything, it was fantastic entertainment. But the story doesn't end here. Ironically, Peter's official ban from the Konami-organized events would be lifted around that time, granting him the ability to attend YCS Seattle only 1 week after the ARG incident. He would play the same deck, with one of his opponents going on Reddit to note that Peter was unpleasant, extremely rushed, and grabbed his cards without asking, overall being a very annoying opponent to play against. And at this tournament, Peter would somehow get disqualified and banned yet again. Though the exact reason for his disqualification wasn't explicitly confirmed, according to a user on Reddit, it was allegedly for UC cheating related to something with the graveyard. Now, I know what you're thinking. Based on the prior story so far, you probably think that Peter would return to get his revenge once more. But this was seemingly the nail in the coffin for Peter's career as a player, for he would surprisingly not return to the competitive scene. But Peter's ghost would somehow still be in the community and haunt it in other ways. Also, if you guys made it this far into the video, it hopefully means that you enjoy my content. And I want to let you know really quick, I do have a Patreon page where you can get early access to my future videos like this one and behind the scenes content, including footage from these stories that didn't make the final cut. With his career as a player effectively ended, or at least on extended hiatus, Peter still couldn't leave the game that he devoted so much of his life to. Now, remember how we mentioned earlier that Peter would buy and sell cards to fund his travels? Well, it turns out that being banned from playing, Peter would instead shift his complete attention onto buying and selling cards.
Oh,
creating an
yeah?
online store on the eBay-owned platform TCG Player.
Wait,
But over the
eBay
next few
owns
months,
TCG
across buy and
Player?
sell groups on Facebook, there would be complaints about a certain TCG Player account by the name of Illumina, which which was probably inspired by the Lightsworn monster, if you see where I'm going with this. In Yu-Gi-Oh! Trade complaints, a group consisting of over 11,000 members, several customers would state that this seller had sent them damaged, high-value cards. In one case, it was a Starlight Rare IP Masquerena, which at the time had a market value of over $1,000 USD. But many others were even less fortunate, where they would not receive their
That's
order
so
at
much
all,
money.
having to complain to TCG player support in order to get a refund. With such a concentrated group of Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, many were quick to call out that Lumina was in fact an online store that was owned and operated by Peter Chang. Quite a fitting name, as Lightsworns were one of his most successful decks over a decade prior. As time passed, there were more and more complaints about Peter, ranging from damaged cards that were received not as pictured, to more orders not being received at all. This was a recurring trend, for it seemed that Peter was extremely forgetful, or maybe he just didn't intend to ship out the smaller cards in the first place in the hopes that the customer might forget. Stories would also trickle across the internet to Reddit, where a thread asking sellers to watch out for on TCG Player would have the most upvoted response be about Lumina. Some less than fortunate players would receive their order, but it would be missing a card or two. With other orders, his communications from TCG Player would be less than accommodating, with the buyer having to send multiple messages only to get one sentence in reply before getting ghosted. A belligerent customer who didn't receive his package directly slid into Peter Chang's DMs, with Peter asking, "But how you know it was me?" before being informed that there were many threads about him online. "Oh wow, can't believe there's a thread," he would say. "That's kinda cool." Peter then stated that the package was delivered and provided a tracking number to prove it, except it wasn't delivered to the right address. But with a quick glance at the screenshots, it seems that the buyer was actually moving during his deal with Peter, so we can't fully attribute fault to Peter here. But I thought it was interesting that one person just had enough and actually slid into Peter's personal DMs. Another member alleged that Peter canceled an order he made after the card's price surged overnight, only to relist the exact same cards on the same day that the order was canceled at a higher price. One customer even felt blackmailed and threatened by Peter Chang, though there wasn't any hard evidence beyond their comment. People quickly realized that
can't just
Lumina,
change the
Peter
price,
Chang,
bro.
was to be avoided at all
Someone's
costs.
bought it at the low
And to
price before you've had the chance to change it.
One unsuspecting
Too slow.
fellow would ask for a reference check on Peter Chang, only for the thread to be met with almost 200 laugh reacts. Luckily, he asked before making a deal with Peter. All of this would culminate in a chunk of terrible feedback in Lumina's store on TCG Player, with over 55 pages to a total of 548 negative reviews, and Peter Chang being added to the community blacklist for bad traders and scammers. But in Peter's defense, he somehow still had a positive lifetime rating, with 99.4% on over 50,000 sales, which means that he had actually sold a lot of cards successfully. And though rare, among the heaps of negative comments, there were at least a handful of customers who successfully bought cards from Peter with no issue. But to this very day, Peter Chang continues to peddle cardboard online, with a store comprising of over 450,000 individual products, the last remaining sliver of the legend himself.
Nice and green. Oh god, it just ended. Oh my god. And YouTube, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I know it's been a bit different than usual reacts, but I really like you here, okay? Let me know if you want to see more. Let me know what you want me to see react to next, and we'll see you guys in the next one, okay? Bye.